Good morning. My name is Damiano Longo. I'm a PhD student at the Department of Linguistics and Comparative Cultural Studies at the Università Ca Foscari in Venice. In my presentation, I will discuss one of my experiences in English teaching to pupils of a primary school in order to improve oral skills by using movie trailers with a role-play approach. We're used to listen to the statement that the best way to learn a language is to go abroad. But when we speak about children, above all children at a primary school, it is very difficult to organize an experience abroad. So, the use of new technologies like the internet, YouTube, digital TV, interactive DVDs, or free websites are excellent source of authentic English, with the dialogues, idioms, slang, and other rich examples of a language. For example, in the present work, through the use of trailers of famous movies, including animated films, chosen together with the students, we focused on young learners trying to role-play some video clips in an atmosphere that has promoted the linguistic expression. Accuracy and proficiency were not requested to pupils, so we had the possibility to focus it on some aspects that I think they are very important for young learners. For example, to familiarize with authentic language and to win the reluctance in speaking typical of young learners. In Italian primary school, teachers, before planning a syllabus and a course, have to take into consideration the Italian education directions. The section concerning the foreign language and above all the English language is very important when the document states the teacher will take into account the increasing capacity of the child spontaneously to appropriate pronunciation and intonation patterns to enable more naturally a multilingual system, and above all their natural propensity to do with the language. So the aspect to do with the language, as we know, is very important in learning a second language. And moreover, both the Common Framework of European Languages and the European Commission strategies consider disability an important objective. The descriptors of the skills are pragmatic, and so there is the possibility for young learners to spontaneously appropriate models of pronunciation and intonation to get started on language. To facilitate a natural process of English learning by familiarizing with the spoken English, a movie trailer activity has been chosen in our laboratory. In literature, there are a lot of experiences in second language acquisition, as reported in several works, for example Meloni, Migliacci, Donnelly, King. They offer an excellent background in 9 levels by working with audiovisual and movie. But we found that working with the young learners is different. In fact, at the beginning of our course, we wondered if it is possible for young students to learn by movie trailers. Even if it is possible to play a DVD with the language we want to learn, with or without subtitles, for young learners it is very difficult because they are not able to watch a whole movie without subtitles, even in their own language, in their native language. And for them it is difficult to run into too much unfamiliar language. In our laboratory, we chose to use movie trailers and movie clips without subtitles, in order to reduce the effort of understanding a foreign language and enable the process of learning by input. By working with movie trailers, The expected results were not the learning of a correct written English sentences, as in reading activity, but the assimilation of a correct oral sentences and the acquirement of the prosodic features of the language, as rhythm, intonation, accent, that are the most difficult aspects of the oral language. Our work was not limited to watch the film and to memorize some sentences, but to role-play some scenes by memorizing some key words, but above all trying to act spontaneously by using what had been already learned. We think that for this kind of activity, movie trailers are an added value since they are concise, because they allow people a short and quick immersion in the plot. They provide the keywords and they have not copyright issues. So, for example, if in our classroom there is an interactive board, we can take advantage of this. We can use movie trailer easily. Moreover, to promote oral skills, roleplay is a good activity. In fact, classroom environment increase the learner motivation to learn. Studies about oral group activities, as said in a long, border or right, state that relaxing setting provided the students with the opportunity to practice the language. At a primary school, students are asked to learn vocabulary and to understand simple instructions without a real-life experience of language. So in our laboratory, we provided the students with the challenge to act pragmatically in order to survive linguistically, as is said MacDonough. In the framework of the second language acquisition studies, learning by movies put into effect input and output. Moreover, the theory of communication, as we now introduced by Himes and Halliday, carries out with the audiolingual method the promotion of motivation and personality in second language learning, also in young learners. So in our laboratory, in our work, we found that our experience differs from the other investigations in literatures in that users are not adults, but young learners with a low background and motivation. To improve English competencies in south of Italy, European Commission funds extracurricular courses in the schools that have to apply with their own didactic projects. In the present case, a short syllabus of drama English addressed to students of a primary school aged 9 or 10 years has been proposed by the school and funded by the own organization. The extracurricular course consisted of 30 hours of didactic organized in 10 lessons of 3 hours. The laboratory activity has involved the students from different classes of the last year in primary school and the 2 instructors, the curricular teacher as tutor and the other as the expert teacher. Watching movie trailers and role-play them was the activity chosen by the teacher and tutor. The students were involved in the choice of the movie series. For example, they watched that Harry Potter, Madagascar, Ice Age, Shrek. In particular, the movies of the Harry Potter series were appreciated by learners. The duration of the movie trailer is very short in the experience in the laboratory. Thus, in the same lesson, several trailers could be watched. Since students knew them in their native language, it was easy to understand the plot and the sequence. The purpose of the activity was to detect the oral aspects of the language, as I said before, and so accent, intonation, and rhythm. After an introductory first meeting, each lesson was structured in the following way. As you can see on the slide, a brainstorming, a pre-listening phase, a global comprehension, a role play, and a consolidation. Brainstorming. During this phase, the videos recorded in the previous lesson were showed to the students that could notice their own grammar or lexical mistakes, but also be motivated by their performance in gesture and pronunciation. In the pre-listening phase, a new movie trailer was selected by the expert teacher, and students had to guess the movie by listening to the track of the trailer. This phase had principally a playful goal. Then, the third point, a global comprehension, because after watching the trailer without subtitles, in order to discover the key words, students had to complete a reading exercise. Role-play phase was the longest part of the lesson. In this part, students were sorted in different groups and choose a character to perform. They were free to choose a male or a female character indifferently, or of their own sex. After rehearsing for some minutes every part, they were called to perform this scene, while they were recorded by another teacher, so another person involved in the experiment. It was playful and challenging, and among groups arose a great cooperation in organizing the work and in choosing the role. In the last part, the phases 2 and 4 were repeated with another trailer, and groups were reformed at any change of the movie. It was possible to do this because our lesson consisted in 3 hours, so there was time to do it. In order to document the project, a final activity was chosen and reported in the multimedia DVD. Here we can't use images or videos because children are young learners, and so it is not possible to report their images. The students choose a movie clip to react, to test themselves in a scene not included in the trailer. They chose a reporter and a sorcerer's stone, in particular the scene in the Hogwarts Express train, when the principal character, Harry, makes friends with his 2 classmates. It is interesting to note that the theme chosen by the learners, presenting themselves and meeting new people, is one of the main competences required in curricular studies of foreign language in Italian primary school. Thanks to the continuous interaction between the curricular teacher and the expert, some critical issues have been analyzed. For example, the group included the child of a native speaker that refused to speak English during the curricular English course. Moreover, a lot of students were overcome by their shyness and they showed a low self-confidence. During the experimentation, the child with the native speaker dad started to communicate in English unconsciously, and the shy pupils interacted without minding of their mistakes and lack of fluency. These results were confirmed by the curricular teacher that noticed a more confident approach to the English language in the curricular morning lessons. At the end of our experiment, we found some key factors for the success of the laboratory. For example, a more suitable timetable of the class, In curricular classes, English lessons last usually an hour and are distributed in 2 or 3 hours per week. Then the longer duration of the extracurricular course. In 3 hours it was possible to plan different activities working on listening, reading, writing and speaking abilities, and still having time for the practice performing in a relaxing atmosphere. In addition, we noted that the approach to spoken English through multimedia with respect to the traditional lessons was a novelty for students. Then, maintaining a relaxing atmosphere in the classes is a main goal of the experimentation, considering that cognitive, social and emotional factors play an important role in the learning process. Roleplay was well received by students because they learn to do things by doing them. Movie scenes and animated films are not real life. We are conscious of this, but we think that allow students to think of themselves as people in an environment and not more students in a classroom can be an added value to learn English differently. And at the end, we appreciated the ability of tenured students to learn spontaneously pronunciation, rhythm, accent, and intonation. In foreign language classrooms, it is often a challenge to utilize potentially useful technology. But if teachers are willing to work with the internet, there are interesting online audiovisual resources that offer the possibility to create exciting lessons. In Italy, since 2009, the education system has been providing schools with an interactive board, and teachers are trained to use it. So for foreign language acquisition, this is a big advantage, because the use of technology in class generates greater students' autonomy and lifelong language learning skills, above all in lower level of competence. In particular, in this work, the potentiality of a movie trailer for a young learner has been examined with excellent results in students' performance. Thus, our experiment can be implemented also in curricular English courses for young learners. Though in literature there is a vast resource of the introduction of movie trailers in second language acquisition classes, not much experiences investigate the role of audiovisual for young learners, above all for primary school students. In this paper, the possibility to work with the young learners through movie trailers has been examined. A lot of positive results have been discovered both in performance in oral skill and in motivation and self-confidence, also in children previously reluctant to talk in English. And most of the children involved in the laboratory achieved the A1 level of competence thanks to this didactic experience, even if it was not a goal of the proposed course. We think that the proposed didactic strategy can be adopted also in curricular courses if it is planned in advance and preserving the ludic aspect. In particular, thanks to our laboratory, we found that the possibility to choose the subject, write the scenes, try the role, set up the scenes by the students themselves, allows to facilitate the memorization process, to improve nonverbal communication, and to increase students' motivation. Hoping to have been helpful and satisfactory, I thank you very much for your attention.